Morris. All right, so welcome. This is the free astrotheology course. I am Dr. Yasapo. Here's our course textbook, The Celestial Ship of the North by Emma Valencia Straighton, published in 1927. This is a 2-volume work, and we're on chapter 10. Okay, so we deal with a lot of symbology, and I have to try to keep my voice down because there's a couple here, and I want to give them, um, the opportunity to do their romantic thing. But anyway, uh, we're on page. Oh, I almost forgot. Page 158. My gosh, how did I almost forget this? Page 158. Ah, yes. So you guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to watch the perhaps video number 13, 14, or 15. I think 13 or 14. So we're dealing with the 70 and 72. So give me a moment. Let me set this up. One moment. So you need to read page 157, page 158. There's a specific, this is phenomenal when I bring this to your attention, if your eyes are open. In other words, if you are not under the Mark chapter 4 curse, having eyes to see but you can't perceive, ears to hear but you can't understand anything. Okay? All right. So give me 1 second, guys. Let me just read this paragraph. It'll come to me. I don't know how I forgot about that. So let's read this paragraph. All right. So pause it on the replay, study it. So let's get into it. Circle 7 represents the Great Mother Typhoon, who is the thigh of the Great Bear, today called the Big Dipper. Today, the constellation called Ursa Major, the Big Dipper, in the northern celestial region, okay? The North Celestial Pole. So today, the Big Dipper is or represents the Great Mother Typhoon, the mother of all beginnings, the mother of time, the mother of all things living, okay? And the Ark of Noah, or the Ark, the ship that has all of the germs. Well, let's not say that way. Let's say that the genetic material for all living things, okay, on the planet. So if there's ever a destructive event, the DNA of all living things are stored in the celestial ship of the North, which is the Big Dipper, the Great Mother Typhoon. Okay? So now, the Big Dipper is composed, or the thigh of the Great Bear is composed of 7 stars. And this is why 7, all the 7s throughout the scripture, all the 7s throughout nature, throughout timekeeping, for example, 7 days of the week, the 7th day of the week, the Sabbath or Shabbat, so on and so forth. All 7s trace back to the 7 stars that make up the Big Dipper. The second handle, the second star in the handle is Mitzar, the star called Mitzar, and this is the origin of the house of Yasharallah. Today they're called, erroneously called, Jews or Israelites, who are Camites, etc., etc., okay, according to the celestial ship of the north. And this author gets her work from Madame Blavatsky and Gerald Macy. It's so hard to, it's very difficult to do this while I'm whispering. But anyway, I try to make the mental adjustment. So now what's happening? When the thigh of the Great Bear revolves around the pole star, that first revolution, represents the first cycle of time, or the beginning of time. Now remember, there never was a time when man was not. This is according to Prophet Noble Drew Ali. This is what he told us. There never was a time when man was not. That first revelation, or revolution rather, around the pole star was the beginning of time, according to the story. Now, that revolution is the product of a boundary that our ancestors drew around that which is boundless to create time and space, according to the story. You'll find that everything I'm saying is right here in the celestial ship of the north. So this circle, this initial circle, the beginning of time, was divided into 10 sections, or we can call it 10 regions, or if we visualize it as a pie, 10 slices of pie. Okay, 10 slices of pie. So let's go back to Mitzar. Mitzar is where we get Mitzrayim and Mazarah. Now the Mazarah, of course, is the belt around which the 12 constellations of the zodiac are situated in the solar zodiac projection. Okay, so we're in the north right now. So we're in the circumpolar north and south pole, the north polar celestial polar region. So two different zodiacs. The circumpolar zodiac is so old that no one knows how old it is. Okay, hundreds of thousands, millions, billions, trillions, an uncountable span of time, an undeterminable amount of time. Whereas the solar zodiac projection, some say the current solar zodiac projection is 6, 7, 10,000 years old. Okay, but we can get into that later. But for now, let's deal with the north. So we have this pie representing the revolution of the thigh of the Great Bear as it rotated around the pole star. Today it's called Polaris. It's cut up into 10 pieces, okay? So if you can imagine 10 slices of pie, that 10 slices of pie is further subdivided into 70 slices of pie, or 70 regions, 70 regions. So here we have the beginnings of geometry, right? With the beginnings of geometry, we're dealing with angles and the science of 0 through 9. Okay, so you get this out of C. M. Bain. C. M. Bain's work, The Clock of Destiny, Volume 1 or 2. I don't remember. Maybe it's Volume 1. Yeah, but you'll get that. So the beginning of geometry, beginning of angles. Now remember, angles are angels. Angels are angels, messengers, right? There are various types of messengers. Okay, so when we think about uh, Ezekiel chapter 1, the wheel within the wheel, and then the Most High, etc., etc. That whole vision. What we find is that the wheel within the wheel represents Earth's orbit and the ecliptic. So two circles, right? Two circles. Uh, I'm getting off. Let me go back. So here we are. Noble Drew Ali tells us that man is thought made manifest from the soil. Okay. Emma Valencia Straighton is telling us that the autochthonous Sabian Moors, these would be the Sabian Kemites, Hamites, etc., the Genesis chapter 2 people, men and women, have their origin in Mitzar, which is the second star in the handle of the great bear or the tail of the great bear. So, thought originating or passing through there, being birthed or exiting out of the four stars that make up the cup or the dipper of the Big Dipper. So it is birth, or the thought is birth from the Big Dipper made up of four stars, and then it goes terrestrially, interacts with the soil, and then the thought is made manifest as flesh. Does everyone see that? All right. So now man has a bloodline. Okay. Man has a bloodline. So man produces, man and woman produce heirs, right? Man and woman produce heirs or generations. So now we're looking at 10 generations and the next 70 generations. Does everyone understand that? Civically speaking, there's a well established principle in law that land is the substance and subject matter of the law. This is the basic principle of trust. In fact, this principle is abused. It is abused in the current fiat system. So the abuse of this principle, this legal maxim, is what enables corporations to own land in the U.S. And I think all the Western nations. Okay, this is the abuse of that legal principle. So it is a well-established principle in law that land and law are inseparable. Therefore, land is the substance and subject matter of the law. Now, go into your Black's Law Dictionary, look up land, and what you will find as a meaning of land, one of the meanings are Moors, Moors. Moors is a nationality. If you don't believe that, look at the Treaty of 1836 between the Moroccan Empire and the United States of North America, or the foreign United States of North America. Right, y'all go look at that. You'll see the nationality there. Check Noble Drew Ali's work, Moorish American, the Ish, the nationality Moor traces back to Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Man is thought made manifest from the soil. Does everyone see that? And Ish describes the landmass or the nativity. So the Moor who sprung from the soil or sprung from the American soil. Does everyone see that? So now let's look at this more closely. Let's look at it more closely. Land and law are inseparable. Therefore, Moors and land are inseparable. Therefore, Moors are the substance and subject matter of the law. This is why Moors' nationality was taken away from them. Does everyone understand? The nationality was taken away from the Moors to remove them from the Constitution, right? The preamble of the Constitution, the beneficiaries. as stated in the preamble of the Constitution for the United States of America, of North America. Does everyone understand? The organic Constitution clearly states the beneficiaries, right? Who that document is intended to benefit, etc. Now, let's go back to the 10. The circle was divided into 10 regions or 10 pieces of pie. It was further divided into 70 regions or 70 pieces of pie. Now, remember, we're dealing with angles, therefore, angels, thereby being what, y'all? The Elohim. The Elohim. Does everyone see it? The Elohim. The Elohim of Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, who creates the Han Uman of Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, who is non-descendable, okay, who is non-descendable, and Han Uman, uh, when it is contracted, or in civics, Han Uman becomes human, a contracted form of Han Uman, H-A-N-U-M-A-N, Han Uman. So the contracted form would be to delete the A-N or the N after the H, and you have remaining H-U-M-A-N, human. In a law definition, human is defined as a monster who is non-descendable, who is unable to inherit land, though both of the parents are married. Okay, y'all. Now let's pick this up. Let's continue. So next we have uh, the 10 generations from Adam and Eve. We'll count 10 generations. So that there's 10. These are the heirs who are the rightful owners of the land, right? And all resources and all commerce. And then the next 70 generations. As a matter of fact, I should probably read it so I don't get it wrong. Yes, 10. Yeah, 10 and 70. Okay, 10 and 70 generations. Now, so what's happening here? Now we have the situation where Esau, according to the biblical story, comes out of the womb and he's hairy all over like a hairy garment. Okay, he's brown and hairy all, well, it says red, but red means brown, like a hairy garment, meaning to say he comes out hairy like a animal. Y'all go look up a ruddy, like a ruddy horse, a ruddy cow. So it's reddish brown and hairy. Okay, that's what it is. You can even look at that as, for example, a orangutan. Look that up. Okay, they can be reddish brown or ruddy and hairy all over. So, in my opinion, that's referencing the Han Uman. It's referencing the Han Uman. Esau comes into the earth plane without land, without an inheritance. In other words, Esau is non-descendable. None of Esau's four Esau is not able to own land. Does everyone see it? Now leave leave the circumpolar zodiac and go to the solar zodiac and the remixing of this story. The remixing of the story. I'm going to read this on page 158. The 10 divisions, these are the 10 pieces of pie, the 10 regions of that original revolution. around the pole star, which is a cycle, the first cycle of time. The 10 divisions, the 10 suns. So there we have it, right? There we have it. These suns originate, these suns are thought made manifest, okay? Coming out of Mitzar, the star Mitzar, exiting out of the four stars or four corners, the four stars that make up the Big Dipper, or the Dipper part of the Big Dipper constellation, okay? So they exit out, so therefore those four stars represent the womb. So you have to correlate this civically, correlate four or the four corners to civics, your writs, etc. So this is the celestial womb, the genetrix, the celestial womb, the celestial matrix, okay? So the 10 sons coincide with the Hebrew 10 divisions. And they were the 10 races of men. Of course, there's no such thing as races. That's a political construct. So these would be the 10 autochthonous men, okay? Mentioned in the Persian Budahish, which preceded the Chaldean. But Egypt tells us of no similar legend. Their knowledge of the deluge belonged to the cycles of time. So we'll get into the deluge, what that means. Well, basically, what he's talking about is the end of one zodiacal age and the beginning of another. And this event, these transitions from zodiacal ages are accompanied by deluges, okay? Are accompanied by a deluge, all right? So there were two lists of patriarchs patriarchs, that means man, right? Men. There were two lists of patriarchs who preceded the flood called that of Noah. Now, under the circumpolar zodiac, everything is feminine. Everything is about the great mother Typhoon. Feminine. In other words, hermetically speaking, the hermetic law of gender in its role or function of producing, reproducing, or giving birth and transforming, transmuting. Okay. But under the solar right system, the focus is on the hermetic law of gender in the masculine extreme, okay, or women or man or men rather, or fathers. Okay, so it's the reverse. It's the reverse, okay? Now he continues. There were 7 names in one list and 10 in the other. Isn't that interesting? Wherefore the number of nations in which the new earth was arranged was 72. So how do we get to 72 from 70? That's the topic that I want to discuss right now. Representing the decans of the solar zodiac, which superseded the 7, the 10, and the 70. So I need to pull this up because I'm running out of time. So I'm gonna attempt to let this author tell you instead of me telling you, because I tend to be long-winded and I want to get this right. Wow, it's just a very different experience when I attempt to do this whispering. It's like almost like I can't think. Give me one second, y'all. But there's just so much good stuff. So I'm going to volume two of the Celestial Ship of the North. In the zodiac, the ancient world representing health, one of the first crossing stars, and a direct and corresponding. Neptune is the was Abyr, and this etymology is confirmed by the Arabic name. We are products of our soul, steeply ascend and straight, being an effect upon earth. 12 creative orders, which send forth manifestations of power belong, have affinity with all planes, the supernal rather than the solar. The act that bear their names have moved times to this section of the heavens. If the earth maintained an upright position as she I think I'm close now, guys. The terrestrial poles would correspond with the poles. I think I'm close. But they do not correspond because the earth, instead of maintaining an upright position, has her poles tilted away from the poles of the ecliptic. The points where the plane of the equator and the plane of the ecliptic cross are called the equinoxes. The precession of the equinoxes is caused by the movement of the pole of the equator around the pole. Consequently, the equinoctial point is annually falling back at a unit 25,920 years to complete the entire zodiacal circle, and this is called the Great Year. The precession of the equinoxes is the key to all great cosmic cycles. I think this might be it. Causing manifestations in different ages. Despite disagreements regarding the exact time it takes for these cycles to arrive, the Egyptians were too exact in their calculations to make mistakes, and the proofs are too sound to question. There is no number in all occult science of such importance as 25,920. The zodiac, as we know, is divided into the 12 houses, each containing 30 degrees of 360 this is it. Degrees. The entire zodiacal circle, equator around the poles of the eclipse. So y'all listen to this, okay? The terrestrial poles would correspond, or else the key that would have unraveled their mysteries is. So let me show you where we are. Take a look. Oops. So this is what we're going to listen to. This is an audio book of the Celestial Ship of the North. Take a look at the time. Okay, so you can go back and listen to this. Take a look at the time where we're at. I'm going to press play. One moment. Give me 1 second. Been lost. The zodiac is the apparent course of the sun and the actual course of the planets around the sun. The Earth, on her yearly journey, passes along the belt of the ecliptic or the zodiac, and the sun is the center of the circle that she describes. Now it is evident that if the Earth maintained an upright position as she traveled around the circle of the ecliptic, the terrestrial poles would correspond with the poles of the ecliptic. But they do not correspond because the Earth, instead of maintaining an upright position, has her poles tilted away from the poles of the ecliptic. The points where the plane of the equator and the plane of the ecliptic cross are called the equinoxes. The precession of the equinoxes is caused by the movement of the pole of the equator around the poles of the ecliptic. Each time the sun completes its circle of the zodiac, it crosses the equator a short distance back of the place it had crossed the previous year. Consequently, the equinoctial point is annually falling back at a uniform rate. It takes this point 2,160 years to fall back an entire sign of 30 degrees, remaining 72 years in each degree, and 25,920 years to complete the entire zodiacal circle, and this is called the Great Year. The precession of the equinoxes is the key to all great cosmic cycles, causing manifestations in different ages. Despite disagreements regarding the exact time it takes for these cycles to arrive, the Egyptians were too exact in their calculations to make mistakes. Okay, so there you have it. I don't know if y'all caught it. I don't know if you caught it, but I'll play it one more time. Pay close attention.
Around the poles of maintaining, and the sun is the center of the circle that she describes. Now it is evident their mysteries has been lost. The zodiac is the apparent course of the sun and the actual course of the planets around the sun. The Earth, on her yearly journey, passes along the belt of the ecliptic or the zodiac, and the sun is the center of the circle that she describes. Now it is evident that if the Earth maintained an upright position as she traveled around the circle of the ecliptic, the terrestrial poles would correspond with the poles of the ecliptic. But they do not correspond because the Earth, instead of maintaining an upright position, has her poles tilted away from the poles of the ecliptic. The points where the plane of the equator and the plane of the ecliptic cross are called the equinoxes. The precession of the equinoxes is caused by the movement of the pole of the equator around the poles of the ecliptic. Each time the sun completes its circle of the zodiac, it crosses the equator a short distance back of the place it had crossed the previous year. Consequently, the equinoctial point is annually falling back at a uniform rate. It takes this point 2,160 years to fall back an entire sine of 30 degrees, remaining 72 years in each degree, and 25,920 years to complete the entire zodiac.
All right, so there you have it. There you have it. So we're talking about the Maserat, right? The Maserat, as the sun goes from the first zodiac to the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th, it completes the journey around the path. It takes approximately 26,000 years. So the sun stays in each zodiac or zodiacal age approximately 2,160 years. It's clear? So remember, the Maserat is a remix of Mitzar, the second star. The word Maserat comes from Mitzar, the second star in the tail of the Great Bear, or the second star in the handle of the Big Dipper. Okay? Known as the thigh. Y'all got it? Mitzar. That's where we get Maserat. This is the belt around which those 12 zodiac signs or 12 constellations are situated. So we're dealing with a circle, right? So the sun, so we're dealing with the next concept is the precession of the equinoxes. So what is the precession of the equinoxes? Well, when the sun, so let's say this is the equator, every year the sun passes over the celestial equator. In religion, in Judaism, they call it the Passover. In Christianity, I think it's the first, I don't remember the day, but Easter. You're right, the first, maybe first Saturday, first Friday, I don't remember. After the sun passes over the equinoctial point, usually, well, to standardize, it's around March 22nd, the vernal or spring equinox. Well, every year, the sun doesn't pass over the same place every year. No, it passes a little bit behind the place where it passed the year before, a little bit, and then the next year, a little bit behind that. And then the next year, a little bit behind that. Does everyone understand? And that takes place for about 2,160 years. And then after that, the sun, well, we lose a full 30 degrees. Remember, each zodiac sign is 30 degrees, right? So the next zodiac sign, the same process will happen, and there's another 36 degrees lost. And let the author tell you, this is how we get, or this is not we, but this is how they get the 72, which is the remix from the 70. Okay? So in other words, they had to add 2. But actually, there's more to the story because remember, they added 2 zodiac signs from the 10, right? But anyway, let's let the author speak.
On because the Earth, ecliptic or the zodiac, and the sun is the center of the circle that she describes. Now it is evident that if the Earth maintained an upright position as she traveled around the circle of the ecliptic, the terrestrial poles would correspond with the poles of the ecliptic. But they do not correspond because the Earth, instead of maintaining an upright position, has her poles tilted away from the poles of the ecliptic. The points where the plane of the equator and the plane of the ecliptic cross are called the equinoxes. The precession of the equinoxes is caused by the movement of the pole of the equator around the poles of the ecliptic. Each time the sun completes its circle of the zodiac, it crosses the equator a short distance back of the place it had crossed the previous year. Consequently, the equinoctial point is annually falling back at a uniform rate. It takes this point 2,160 years to fall back an entire sine of 30 degrees, remaining...
Did you guys hear that? Did you hear it? It takes a full zodiacal age, 2,160 degrees, for the equinoctial point to fall back a full 30 degrees. A full 30 degrees. And that's going to happen in every zodiacal age. Now, listen to what the author says next. So he's going to, well, I can tell you. Well, let the author tell y'all.
Are called the equinoxes. The precession of the equinoxes is caused by the movement of the pole of the equator around the poles of the ecliptic. Each time the sun completes its circle of the zodiac, it crosses the equator a short distance back of the place it had crossed the previous year. Consequently, the equinoctial point is annually falling back at a uniform rate. It takes this point 2,160 years to fall back an entire sine of 30 degrees, remaining 72 years in each degree.
Did y'all hear that? So the sun remains 72 years in each degree. The sun remains 72 years in each degree. That's where the 72 comes from. So let me go back and I'm going to play that again too. So let's read this while it's fresh. So there were 7 names in one list and 10 in the other list. Wherefore the number of nations which the new earth was arranged was 72. So it's celestial. Wherefore the number of nations into which the new earth was arranged, do y'all see? Was 72. So what is this sound? You know what this is kind of sounding like to me? This is kind of sounding like before Noah's Ark, before the deluge, that was Sabian time. Okay, that was the time when everyone was at peace, the world over. There was cooperation, a global brotherhood, and everybody, or let me not say everybody, the paradigm was Circle 7, Clock of Destiny, Workshop of the Mind, and Natural Law, Don't Steal, which means civically don't injure someone. All right? And then at the flood of Noah, I'm just conceptualizing this because there's a vision, there's a division, right? There's the deluge of Noah's time, and a deluge represents a change in eras of time. Okay, so now after Noah's flood, there comes in the Solarites, right? So the Sabian way of reckoning time and reality was, as I just said, the Solarites reckon time and reality based upon the sun along the ecliptic and external religions. Okay, the sun along the ecliptic and external religions, and of course the four seasons, okay. And clearly they remixed, they just grabbed everything from the circumpolar zodiac, they grabbed it and remixed it, Jeremiah 8:8. So if you don't know what remixed means, guys, a remix is when you tell a story, there's an existing story, and then an author or an editor comes in and changes it, changes names, places, times, adds, changes details, but the essence of the story remains the same. Okay, y'all? So, wherefore the number of nations in which the new earth would be after Noah, was arranged was 72. Was 72. All right? Representing the what, y'all? The duodecans of the solar zodiac, which superseded the seven. In other words, became more prominent than the seven, that circle seven. Circle seven, of course, is the thigh of the great bear. The thigh of the great bear represents the great mother typhoon, or reckoning time by the stars, reckoning reality by the workshop of the mind, okay? And of course, natural law don't steal, etc. So, superseded by the seven, the 10. Remember we talked about the pie that was divided into 10 pieces, or the ten nations, or the 10 rather heirs, the autochthonous Sabian Moors, the Kemites, right? And then the 70 generations that followed them. These would be the heirs, the rightful heirs, right? So these 72 nations took over and raised themselves above the autochthonous Sabian Moors. This is where you get 72 from the 70. It's representing a different way of reckoning time and reality. Does everyone understand? Does everyone understand? So let me let y'all hear this one more time, and then we'll away from the poles of the ecliptic. Journey passes along the belt of the ecliptic. This is a very, very, very important concept to get, because this is clear evidence that one, we're dealing celestially, and two, we're dealing with the reckoning of time and reality. Okay, so we're dealing with conquest and birthright theft. Okay, so the 7, the 10, and the 70 represent the autochthonous Sabian Moors, the autochthonous Hamite, Kemites, Moabites, etc. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Man, reckoning time celestially, having a celestial mindset, a boundless mindset, reckoning time and reality celestially, no boundaries. In other words, no dogmatic beliefs, no limiting fears, and creating and bending reality through the workshop of his mind, through acknowledging, activating, using his faculties of of visualization and imagination, and being, having no doubt, and being. Okay, and of course, natural law don't steal. Okay, that's the mindset of our ancient foremothers and fathers. That is the Sabian reckoning of time and reality. All right, and then the 10, I'm sorry, and then the 7 and the 10 and the 72 The 7, the 10, and the 72 represents the solar reckoning of time and reality with its dogmatic religious belief systems and its primary purpose to rob people of their birthright and to put them in bondage. Okay? To put them in bondage and take them out of their mind, to disconnect their eyes and their ears from reality, right? From, as a matter of fact, reality by definition, right, uh, is your ability to sense your environment and process it. So consciousness, nature, to disconnect you from nature and therefore have nature work against you to keep you in bondage. So the whole solarite system is fake. It's illegitimate. That's the point. It's illegitimate. Okay? It is illegitimate. Anyway, so the next paragraph. The covenant of Abraham follows the flood, ending the first period of the 10 patriarchs. Okay? The bow or the circle in heaven, the rainbow, was one witness of this covenant connected with the zodiac, and circumcision was the other. So, this covenant he's talking about is the solar zodiac. The solar zodiac with the Lamb of God, Aries, and the solar reckoning of time and reality. This is what's happening here. This is the transition or the conquest of the rightful heirs of the planet by the Han Uman. And then they put in world, their own world based upon the solar zodiac. Y'all understand? Their own paradigm. They created a whole new paradigm using or copying nature, which is a circumpolar zodiac projection. Y'all understand? So they created this solar zodiac paradigm, and then they created the solar religions that go with it and the dogmatic religious belief systems. And then they put in laws, well, what they call laws, a system of punishments and rewards to make this real in the minds of all the people. Okay? And when you believe something to be true, what will happen? Well, you're a creator, so you'll begin to create what you believe based upon what you've been programmed. So y'all should go watch Mark Passio's work. Mark Passio talks about how man is programmable, and that is the absolute truth. Man is programmable, and the solar zodiac projection, the solar zodiac dogmatic religious systems, these are programs, and you have to break that program, dehypnotize yourself. That program is Mark chapter 4, verse 12. All right. So, anyway, that's what I wanted to cover. Wait. Let's read the last paragraph. The two lists of the names of the patriarchs that preceded the flood of Noah. The first seven are Adam, Cain, Enoch, Jared, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. The second, now remember, seven is coming from the seven stars that make up the thigh of the Great Bear, today the Big Dipper. Okay, so there are seven stars there, so they're saying seven generations here, or seven. Uh, the first seven are the first seven patriarchs, rather. The second comprises Adam, Seth, Enoch, Quanan, Mahalalel, Jared, Hanok, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. So there's the 10, I believe. Yeah. These are commonly called the Elohistic and Jovistic records, and are two forms of the Hebrew generations given in one of the creation legends. Y'all got it? So the Elohim, Genesis chapter 1, and then the deity has a name in Genesis chapter 2, which is YHWH. YHWH is a cheap remix or knockoff of the Great Mother Typhoon, represented by the thigh of the Great Bear, known today as the Big Dipper. Initially, YHWH was feminine. Of course, it's not talking about sex. Feminine energy, as in the Hermetic law of gender. Okay, the extreme end of the line that is feminine, responsible for creating and producing, transforming, transmuting, okay, or birth. You know, the role of a woman giving birth. Uh, listen to this, y'all. Squeaky clean. Bro, get off the internet. You're deceiving people. You need to you need to repent. So here's the Christian bullying, y'all. You need to repent and follow Christ. You're old and don't have much time left. You better get it right. Did you see the bullying? Do y'all see the bullying? Uh, you're squeaky clean. You're welcome to address the topic with facts and evidence, or or reason and logic. Okay, I'm not afraid of these deities, and I'm not afraid of the dogmatic religious beliefs. I've left that a long time ago. The bullying doesn't work. So see, this is an example, scholars, of how if you believe this stuff, if you believe it, and people like him putting these ideas into your brain, you could subconsciously start to self sabotage. Okay, because you believe these things. Oh, yeah, the deity is going to get me if I don't repent, right? And then you self sabotage, and now you create the evidence. You create the evidence through the workshop of your mind, and that program, that solar religious program, okay, gives you evidence that your beliefs are correct. Does everyone understand that? Do you see how? Do you see how dangerous these people are who do this kind of thing? Okay, but now that you're aware of it, when someone does it to you, you are conscious of it, you're aware of it, and you can take steps to make sure you counteract hermetically. Y'all want to know what this is called hermetically? Hermetically, what this speedy clean, your squeaky clean, what's hermetically, what squeaky clean just did, he just dropped some cuckoo bird. Yeah, this is according to the hermetic laws, the law of gender. He just dropped some cuckoo bird egg seed thoughts. Okay. Now he intends it. I don't know if he intends it for me or the people who watch the video who will read his comments. And these seed thoughts, in the case of a cuckoo bird, let me tell you the story of a cuckoo bird. This is the concept. The cuckoo bird will lay its egg in another bird's nest when that bird is not there. Okay, so that bird will then nurture the cuckoo bird's egg along with her own eggs. The cuckoo bird egg hatches first in every case. And if it doesn't, the little baby bird that hatched before it, that's the heir, that's the real heir, or let's say the baby of the bird who made the nest, that cuckoo bird, when it hatches out, because it's bigger, it will kick that bird out, throw the mother bird's baby out of the nest, kill it. If the egg had not hatched before the cuckoo bird hatched, the cuckoo bird will then kick that egg out of the nest and kill the bird in the egg before it has a chance to hatch. And then the mother, not knowing, continues to nurture that cuckoo bird, feed it every day, not knowing that that cuckoo bird is not hers and that it killed her babies, not knowing it, raises it as its own. So just like that, squeaky clean, these type of religious fanatics, ignorant people, will plant a thought in your mind and you're not aware. Okay, but that thought activates subconscious fears and beliefs, and then you nurture it. Okay, this is also related to the phenomena called narrative transportation. You go to a movie, you watch the movie, and 2 hours go by. And it seems like 5 minutes, and you forgot about everything in your life. You're totally absorbed in the movie, okay, or in the Bible story. And when you continue repetitively to expose yourself to this type of content like that, you will begin to live your life based upon the values, fears, and rewards that you've been exposed to in those movies or in that story. The Bible story is nothing, or these Bible stories are nothing but stories, plays, right? In the same way, that's what a story is. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be called a story. So people like Squeaky Clean, who have a cult member mentality, when they throw thought, uh, these cuckoo bird egg thought seeds out, you have to be uh, aware because they are intended. They are intended. They are Trojan horses. Okay, they are Trojan horses that are intended like a virus, like a computer virus, that are intended to hijack your consciousness and make you produce that which you fear. And the fear, you obtain the fear through the dogmatic religious beliefs or those stories. Y'all understand? So let me see what this clown has to say. All right, so Squeaky Clean. Uh, you're just yapping. When are you going to teach what Christ actually said? You know what? I'm teaching what Christ said. In fact, if there was anyone who taught the truth about Christ, it is I. It is I. I teach the truth about what Christ said. Okay, and people like you teach lies. And you don't know enough to, I mean, I don't know if you're sincere or not, but people like you, generally speaking, don't know enough to even talk on the matter about Christ. Okay, all right. What an idiot. All right, Squeaky Clean. So you had your 5 minutes of fame. So bye bye, Squeaky Clean. Go urinate in somebody else's swimming pool. Okay, everyone. So there you have it. there you have it. So now the topic is the celestial origin of the house of Yasharallah, or the Jews, the celestial origin of the Jews. Give me 1 second, y'all. So to go back and listen to this, y'all, hold on. North and south. Occult significance has reverence was given in prehistoric times to this section of the heavens. And although there are many other constellations north and south, hold on, same substance as 60 degrees that comprise the point, to fall back in Earth and in no wise dependent on and striking our Earth at various angles produces the energy of light. Due to the precession of the equinoxes, here we are. Reflectors are indices of, but are in that same path through which the planets revolve around the sun. From an occult standpoint, the planets have affinity with all planets. So, y'all, let me go back one topic. Let me just play about 2 minutes of this. It's just going to be a repeat of what we already listened to, and then I'll continue, okay? It is through the planets that the forces and energies of the higher planes are brought through to the Earth as physical forces. The fixed stars are indices of the supersolar force. The sun is but a means of this relegated fire. If we are to understand truly what the solar force means on Earth, we should at all times regard the indices of the supersolar force which the sun conveys to us. The fixed stars are reflectors of the supernal rather than the solar. The rays which the fixed stars emit are darkness. Knowledge of this subject removes the static for astrologers. The rays of the sun do not produce the light we are aware of on our Earth today. It is the reflected influence of other suns that comes direct from the central sun, and striking our Earth at various angles produces the energy of light. Due to the precession of the equinoxes, constellations that occupied the signs of the zodiac that bear their names have moved away some 30 degrees. The constellations or groups of fixed stars begin with the first degrees of Pisces and the zodiac at the first degree of Aries when measured where the ecliptic and equatorial circles meet. The same influences assigned to the constellations, used in our zodiac of today, are due to the occult property given to each of the signs, a property inherent and unchangeable, and in no wise dependent on the constellations or groups of fixed stars from which they receive their names. Our zodiac is a mystery language and shows the relationship between God and man. Very great reverence was given in prehistoric times to this section of the heavens, and although there are many other constellations north and south, occult significance has not attached to them, or else the key that would have unraveled their mysteries has been lost. The zodiac is the apparent course of the sun, and the actual course of the planets around the sun. The Earth, on her yearly journey, passes along the belt of the ecliptic or the zodiac, and the sun is the center of the circle that she describes. Now it is evident that if the Earth maintained an upright position as she traveled around the circle of the ecliptic, the terrestrial poles would correspond with the poles of the ecliptic. But they do not correspond because the Earth, instead of maintaining an upright position, has her poles tilted away from the poles of the ecliptic. The points where the plane of the equator and the plane of the ecliptic cross are called the equinoxes. The precession of the equinoxes is caused by the movement of the pole of the equator around the poles of the ecliptic. Each time the sun completes its circle of the zodiac, it crosses the equator a short distance back of the place it had crossed the previous year. Consequently, the equinoctial point is annually falling back at a uniform rate. It takes this point 2,160 years to fall back an entire sign of 30 degrees, remaining 72 years in each degree, and 25,920 years to complete the entire zodiacal circle, and this is called the Great Year. The precession of the equinoxes is the key to all great cosmic cycles, causing manifestations in different ages. Despite disagreements regarding the exact time it takes for these cycles to arrive, the Egyptians were too exact in their calculations to make mistakes, and the proofs are too sound to question.
There is no number in all occult science of such importance as 25,920. The zodiac, as we know, is divided into the 12 houses, each containing 30 degrees of the 360 degrees that comprise the whole. It is due to these that events of ancient times can be so clearly identified. History gives us these periods in the symbol worship of the different eras. About 6,000 years ago, when the sun entered the sign Taurus, the bull, there were the bull-headed gods. About 2,000 years later, there were the ram-headed gods, represented by the sign Aries, the ram. The past 2,000 years were represented by the sign Pisces, the fishes. The changing of the cycles or the changing of the gods meant that a new spiritual impulse had entered the world, a new manifestation of the light heralded by wars, cataclysm, etc., great and small. We are entering upon such a period today, as the Piscean manifestation recedes to make way for the advance of the Aquarian era, ushering in a great extension of spiritual recognition. An age or era takes its inception or impulse from the sign of the zodiac, which ushers out the vanishing past for the evolving future. Man's spirit is of the same substance as the stars, and it is by placing oneself in harmony with God's laws that all things become possible. All teaching shows that the zodiac was a foundation for the study of the laws of God, and that to understand these laws we must love nature. Our Bible proves to be a study of our solar system and gives...
Okay, y'all. So the interesting thing in there too is that the author says, and this is true, he says that the word of God is natural law. And that's hidden. See, unless you know these ancient sciences, you'd never know the full meaning of this title. Do you see that? Let me remove the cover. Let me remove the cover. Do y'all see that? The astrology of the Old Testament, or the lost word regained. That lost word, of course, is astrology. The lost word is also natural law. What's natural law? Natural law are the laws or principles that govern the universe. Well, what are they? These are the Hermetic laws. These are the Hermetic law. The first of which is the Hermetic law of mentalism, consciousness, awareness, imagination. Okay, so the activity of the mind is called thought. So the first Hermetic law is mentalism. Therefore, if you study the Hermetic laws, this will sound familiar to you. All exist in the mind of the all, right? The universe exists in the mind of the all. The other 6 Hermetic laws or principles that govern nature emanate from, they have their origin from, or they are different vibrations coming from consciousness. Y'all see it? So the other 7 have their origin or emanate from the Hermetic law of mentalism. Does everyone see? The first most powerful, of course, is mentalism. The second most powerful is the Hermetic law of gender. And gender, of course, in the Bible or in religion is the Holy Spirit. Okay, or if you look at it in terms of man has 2 types of consciousness. The subconscious mind, which is the responsible for growth and development. So that's already very clear that this is the Hermetic law of gender in its feminine function, growth and development, right? Growth and development, production, transmuting, transforming. And then, of course, the conscious mind, according to science, the decision maker does not exist in the physical body. So the conscious mind is not in the physical body, but that's not the point. The masculine end of gender is willpower and law, right? And then that law passes through families, through bloodlines, nations. Does everyone see that? And of course, the Father and the Son. So we see the Father, the Hermetic law of gender is masculine, the Mother, the Hermetic law of gender is feminine. Of course, the Tetragrammaton in its initial rollout was feminine, a cheap knockoff of the Great Mother Typhoon. Does everyone see it? Does everyone see that? Does everyone see it? And then, of course, the Son, if we continue with that analogy, would be the behavior that you produce. So if you allow someone like Squeaky Clean to lay a cuckoo bird egg seed thought into your consciousness, you will produce a son, you will produce behavior that's not you. This is according to the Hermetic laws, the Hermetic law of gender. Okay, so we must protect our minds, right? So this is why Sabian Moors have a universal perspective, and we reckon time and reality through science. We reckon time and reality celestially. Remember the mind is everywhere and nowhere. The mind is everywhere. Okay? In other words, it's non-local. You only recognize it when you do what? When you pay attention, when you direct your attention. Okay? So we get into vibrations and, the Son, the Father, Son, and the Father, the Mother, and the Holy Spirit. I'm sorry, the Father, the Holy Spirit, and the Son. Okay? And the Son, your behavior, right? Your behavior that gets produced. All right? Um, so where are we? I almost forgot what I was talking about. Sometimes I get to talking, and but you guys make sure when you watch this video again, listen to the audios, study the audios. Now the last time I played it, I let a lot of it play. You need to study that whole section in order to really, really be able to appreciate this. See, the more you learn, the more you learn, the more you will be able to overcome that solar religion programming, right? In other words, you'll be able to come back to reality. You'll be able to come back to reality. And people who try to insert these cuckoo bird seed thought or cuckoo bird egg seed thoughts into your mind, they won't have any success against you, right? That's why in the Silva method there is a expression that we do. Negative thoughts and negative influences have no effect on me at any level of the mind. Okay, so we have to take an an active uh, approach to keep these thoughts out of our mind. Okay, look at this guy. He's still going. I wonder if this is a bot. He must not have a life. If this is a real person, if Squeaky Clean is a real person, he doesn't have a life. Okay, y'all. So we're on page 61. How much time do I have? Maybe I have an hour. So y'all start your audio. This is The Celestial Ship of the North, Volume 2 by Emma Valencia Stratton. Volume 2. You want to begin listening around 4 minutes and 4 hours, 4 hours and 7 minutes or so into the video, approximately 4 hours and 7 minutes or so into the video. And you can listen to the first 4 or 5 minutes and get the information that we just talked about. Okay. The point is that these generations from Adam all the way to the 70th generation that are recorded here are astronomical. Okay, they are astronomical. They represent circle 7. They represent I'm talking about the original, not the knockoff. In the original zodiac, they represent circle 7. Okay, that first revolution of the Great Bear, the Big Dipper, around the pole star. Now, around the pole star, Polaris. In the solar zodiac, it's the SUN sun. Okay, it's Earth rotating around. What time do you close? Closing time.
10
10
p.m.
Oh, all right. Thank you. So in the solar zodiac projection, instead of Polaris, it's the SUN sun. Now keep in mind, here's the North Celestial Pole. Here's Polaris, right? The North Star, Polaris. And then here's Circle 7, the celestial ship of the North, okay, revolving around the pole star. One revolution takes approximately 25,920 years, or let's round it off. Let's say 26,000 years. Now, a solar great zodiacal year is the same amount of time. It's the same amount of time. Okay. Now, you can get that on page, I think it's page 24 of volume 1 in the Celestial Ship of the North. So they just copied it. Okay. So that circle being divided into 10 pieces of pie, this is where geometry, the angles, are having their origin, and also the number system 0, or the science of 0 through 9, as CM Bay calls it. I think that's what he calls it. Okay. Now, thank you too. So now what's happening? So what's happening is, so what's happening is uh, that circle gets divided into 10 regions. So now we have 7 stars gets remixed into 7 generations from Adam, or the 7 patriarchs. I'm sorry, the 7 patriarchs, and then the 10 represents 10 generations, and then the 10, or that pie of 10 pieces, 10 slices of pie, gets cut into a total of 70 pieces of pie, and those 7 pieces of pie in religion become 70 generations. So these 7, 10, and 70, these are Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, autochthonous Moors, Sabian Moors, Hamites, Chemites, Moabites, etc. Right? These are the rightful heirs to all commerce and all resources and all land. Okay? These are the gods, the Elohim. Okay? And Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, this is mankind, a kind of man that was made that is non-descendable. In the Bible story, this would be Esau. This would be Esau. Okay, so Esau has no inheritance. So Esau goes around conquering, and Esau is the product of Yaqub and his 12 feminine co-scientists who said, "Let us make man in our image." Okay, so therefore, this created creature called a Han Uman had both sex organs present. Okay, he was an hermaphrodite. Okay, and that's not me saying it. You can. This is easy to find out. They're very easy to find out. When he came out of the womb, he was ruddy and hairy all over like a hairy garment. Okay, or uh, maybe like an orangutan, or maybe like a chimp. But usually orangutans are more ruddy, reddish brown, right? But y'all can think about that. It doesn't matter. The point is that the Han Uman is half man and half chimpanzee. Okay, and you'll find reference to that in The Devil's Pulpit by Robert Taylor. You'll find the Jews; these are the religious converts, according to Robert Taylor. You'll find these Jews said to be orangutans. All right. Now, that's not me saying it. Now, in modern times, they say, oh, he's being racist. No, 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 no. No, he was telling the story the way a TI is. Y'all go and read it yourself. It's right there in The Devil's Pulpit. Do not apply today's, what do you call it, political controversies to to events that happened in 1831. Okay, there's no relationship. There's no relationship whatsoever. The man was telling his story, okay, what he knew to be true. All right. So if you say that, you have to go back then and say the same thing about all of the beloved founding fathers. I remember when I was in school, to get over or to soften up the hateful things that the founding fathers did to the autochthonous Moors, who they were denationalizing, calling them black uh, Indians, and all of that nonsense, bywords. They would say, well, they were men of their times. You cannot say they're bad. You cannot say they're hateful. They were men of their time. Well, you take that same ridiculous principle and apply it to the Reverend Robert Taylor, okay, who obviously was not hateful. Obviously, the man was not hateful because he came out and he told the truth about the astrotheology. He did not just tell you the truth, but he gave you the truth. Meaning he gave you the etymology, the philology. He gave you the etymology and the philology. He gave you the history, secular. The secular would be the mythology, and he gave you the astrology. And he challenged you to think, not like this clown, Squeaky Clean, who's bullying, trying to use fear. Okay, guys? But anyway, um, thanks for joining me for this session. If y'all want to know more about ancient Ibaryath, the original language that the Old Testament was written in, subscribe to the class. You should see the banner at the top. Go to zionlawschool.org. Okay, type in that email, go to zionlawschool.org, click on courses offered, and then I think it's Ancient Ibaryath, or 101 Ancient Ibaryath. Click on that and you can subscribe, okay? All right. Assalamu alaikum. Shalawama. Islam to all the Moors. Oh, by the way, y'all like and share the video, and make sure you get this uh, uh, to anyone who you think might benefit from this information. Okay, share it with them. Don't be scared. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all in the next one.